I've read about it in the car on the way back. Man United firing today around, or making redundant, language there, around 25% of its sort of general day-to-day working staff. I've seen a lot of people online get angry about it. I've seen people I respect in the financial world say, oh my God, they're making normal people redundant, yet they're still paying Anthony's wages. How is this really going to help the team and the club? What do you boys think about Man United making around, I think it's around 250 staff redundant?
Mo, you're heartless, so go first.
I agree with the people that the backlash. I agree. Big corporate, Man United are a big corporation, big company, right? You are paying some players wages without playing because you have contracts with them. Yes, I see that. I don't know about the law in the UK, to be honest. But for example, here in America, you can just fire people if you don't have a union. You can just fire people.
So just on that, just before you go any further. So here in the UK, we have a lot more employment rights and regulations than in the States. They won't be fired; they'll be made redundant, which means they'll be paid off. So they'll get, I don't know what they'll get, but I'll give you an example. A friend of mine was made redundant from Barclays, and it was sort of like a 60,000-70,000 pound payoff. So they won't just be kicked out with no money in their back pocket, but yeah, they're made redundant. They'll be paid off as an example. They won't just be let go tomorrow and that's it.
It is so worrying when you see 25% of the employees being laid off, because what were these guys doing in the club? Like 25% of the staff being laid off. What were they doing in the club? What were they getting paid to do? If that's, and it shows, to be honest, you can look at it from both ways. You can look at it from the Glazers were really running a shit show, and there was 25% of the employees that you didn't need. They got paid. And you can look at it from the positive point of view of Jim Ratcliffe is doing the right things at Man United, and he's setting the things right way, and he's fixing the finances of the club. Because 25% is, I've never heard of a company lay off 25% at once. But because what are you going to do about the day-to-day jobs of these people? I don't know. Or you can look at it from the other way, is that they're going to put more workload on the other people. I am not at Man United. I don't work at Man United. But you can spin this however you want, to be honest. I'm going to be honest. I'm going to sit on the fence here because I actually don't know. It might be that completely one of the best moves of someone who's laying off people that don't work and get paid and fixing the finances of the club. Or it can be someone who's heartless and he's laying off people and he's going to give the responsibilities to some other people at the club, and he just wants to save some money. You can look at it from both ways. I've seen it go both ways. I don't know. I'm not going to sit here and tell you I know. I don't know what were these people doing at the club, and they will never tell us. Of course, I know.
This is the thing. If they were in a position where like they're kind of faking jobs, or Jim Ratcliffe found out the names of like 15 people that work for Man United that on jobs that don't even exist or aren't there, or like there's something like that, where it's like I employ my cousin on This Is Football and then give him a massive salary to avoid taxes type shit. I don't know what the hell is going on. But if it's just regular people, in terms of saving money, I don't think it saves money at all. For a club, for a corporation like Man United, random guy called Jim who earns like, 50 grand a year is not gonna save money for Manchester United, and another random guy called Phil who earns like, 40 grand a year is not gonna save money, and a guy working minimum wage is not gonna save money for them. So I look at this and I think, look, I think this is very dependent on context. And the problem is we are not supplied with context. We actually don't know what the hell is going on. We don't know who they sacked, who they didn't hire, who's being let go of. So yeah, that's the thing that kind of where we can't answer properly, to be honest.
Do you know what's really interesting? So it's saving around the average salary of around 35k. Making a quarter of Man United staff redundant will save the club about 8.7 million pound a year. Now, there's so many trains of thought to this, though. And I understand the initial backlash of, oh, my God, you've made 25% of the sort of normal everyday staff, sort of working class Mancunians redundant. And that is a disgrace. And I think on the surface, I understand why people have that response. But there is a really big however to this. You said earlier that you've never seen a company do this. I think we would all agree, whether you like him as a person or not, we would all agree that Elon Musk is a brilliant businessman who isn't just good at making himself money, he's good at making companies more successful. Would we typically agree with that?
Yeah.
Yeah.
80% of the Twitter staff were made redundant very, very quickly after he arrived. And he spoke about it in an interview and just said they just weren't needed. And there was actually loads of videos that were viral before he took over of an average Twitter employee's day. And they spent most of their day meditating, doing yoga, or having coffee breaks. I have, and this is a gut feeling based on what we have seen coming out of the press in the last 6 months. I think there's a lot of people at Man United being paid, whether it's 20 grand, 35 grand, 50 grand, 100 grand is irrelevant to me. I think they're being paid to do jobs that are just pointless. And typically speaking, unless your job is saving your organization money or your job is making an organization money, what is the point of you? And I know that sounds a very harsh way to look at things, but I believe it's the reality. If you're being, whatever your job is at Man United, if you're, say you work in the marketing team, you're paid 35 grand a year, you get 15 grand in bonus. So you cost the company 50,000, but you're bringing in 250,000 pound a year of revenue because you're good at selling. They didn't make that person redundant, in my opinion. That individual has probably kept their job. If you're somebody that, if one of the PAs, one of the executives, and you save that PA, as a PA, you save that executive so much time, energy, and effort doing particular roles, and it enables that person to flourish in their job. They kept their role. Typically speaking in life, unless an organization is failing because of bad decisions at executive level, so they have to get rid, like the Lehman Brothers as an example. If a business is, and Man United as a business are growing when it comes to revenue, right? So if you look at it from a business perspective, we are thriving. If 25% of people have lost their jobs, that is because those 25% of people, to coin the phrase, are redundant to the organization. And I think there is an element here of, there is, as much as I believe in supporting a working class person, I don't believe it's an organization's responsibility to employ people that it doesn't need. I think they're better off pumping and investing that money. And as billionaires, they're not saving £8 million a year to give it to themselves. That would just be a ridiculous PR move because it's a drop in the ocean to their, £40 billion net worth. I think they're doing it to create more efficiency within the organization. They've said in the press release, the money saved will go into the first team. I don't think that actually means into a player. The journalists won't publish it. I think it's more about, well, maybe we can get 2 better recruiters in that cost an extra, 200 grand a year to get, but we can find better players that make the first team better. But what we have to create at Manchester United is efficiency. And we have had so many stories that have come out about, it sounds like silly things, but I think they're really important. Office spaces not being tidy, bins not being emptied, people just wanting to work from home, but not really doing any work. When they're being told to come back into the office, there's this big upheaval about, I can't for this reason or that reason. And I believe there's underperformance. And a lot of people saying, Terry, how do you know that there is underperformance? Like I've said, typically speaking in business, if an organization is thriving financially and growing, you are only going to make mass redundancies if those particular roles, those particular jobs are not saving or making or adding genuine value to your organization. Because if those positions could all increase the revenues of the company and the club, they'd all keep their jobs. Or if they're all saving the club money, they would all keep their jobs. I would pay you to whatever you want in salary. If you could, say you wanted £1 million a year to work for the Terrace, but you could guarantee me £1.5 million of income. That means I'm making £500,000 profit. I'm going to pay you that money, but you've got to deliver. So I see a lot of people trying to create sort of some false outrage around this. And until they can show me documentation that these staff were integral to the football club, needed by the football club, and they've sacked them just to save £8 million, I don't want to hear the nonsense. Man United do not have a responsibility to pay people to do jobs that we just don't need them to do.
Yeah, but this is why I said the context matters, Terry, because we don't know the context. Like Mo said it when he first started speaking, and I agree with him. I don't know what the guy that they fired works as.
True.
That's the thing. It could be just because I've listened. I've been in you know these type of businesses before. I've seen people get paid for doing fuck all basically. So I know exactly what it means. Like when we first had a guy in my previous job, when we had a new like plant manager. He came in, and for the first week, all he did was fire about 12 people who he just thought just makes no difference to the business and makes no difference to the company and doesn't affect the way we operate or the machinery operates or anything. So he just fired about like 12 to 15 people. But he was probably right in that decision because it did save the company a lot of money in terms of, okay, these 12 jobs are not necessary, they're not needed, and they're made up jobs. Now, if that's the case, then okay, I get it. But if I'm saying like if it's a guy working for the cafeteria and shit, it makes it different. So
yeah, I mean, if they've got on, yeah, exactly. And I the moment that there is no reason to suggest this is something sinister. But I remember, you know, in my early, you know, in jobs that I've had, there were people that had almost pointless roles where they would be called like area service managers, and they just go around. They were basically fouled at the job they were meant to do, and they were liked by senior management. So they'd be given a job going round to branch, just checking on service levels. And then what would happen is every time a new regional director would come in, they'd look at all the people that should have been sacked for failing at their jobs, given this sort of these, you'd phrase it as like a job for boys. Oh, we have a good drink at the weekend, so I'm going to create this role that doesn't really exist. They were all made redundant and moved on, and everyone was in uproar about it. And I used to sit there and think, it is sad, but their role isn't needed. But there isn't an official role within the organization. And I bet you'll find a lot of that going on. You know, people that there'll be duplicate jobs. But why have we got 4 people that are, why is there 5 people that are the senior content creator? Well, they all look after a different strand of content. One person can do that job. We're hemorrhaging £200,000 a year on people that are doing nothing. Businesses should not and cannot operate that way. And as much as people will say, I love Man United when they're a football club and not a business, all of our clubs are now run as businesses. You can't be turning over half £1 billion to £1 billion a year and not operate like a business. That would be stupid. It really, really would be. So until someone can show me evidence that we've just damaged loads of lives for no reason because they were really efficient, really brilliant, worthwhile and integral staff members to the club, I'm not going to sit there. It's sad, and I don't like to see people being made redundant. I really, really don't. But at the same time, I've just got this gut feeling that it was overinflated, bloated, not insubordinate or lazy, but a workforce that didn't do that much, a bit of job for boys, and now that's over. So yeah, I'm behind it. And if we improve as a football team, that's it. 200K a year compensation to waste in wages on a joke player. But this is the thing. Ineos can't be blamed for any of it. I see people today. Oh, but and look how much Anthony's paid, and yet he's still there. Well, they're not. You can't just, again, the redundancy for somebody that's earning £30,000 a year is a lot cheaper than someone that's earning £7-8 million a year. So it's not as simplistic as just getting rid of them. You're going to try to get somebody to buy them first, so you don't pay anything. You actually earn money from it. The second element is this. Ineos didn't sign Anthony. They cannot be held accountable for anything that happened before them. What they're accountable for is how they try to improve the football club. And sometimes you have to make really tough, difficult decisions that are not popular. I'm just not against it. I've seen so many organizations have to do this, and it's typically speaking, it's the right thing to do. It really, really is. Not all the time are redundancies right. If for instance, Ineos made some investment choices and it ruined us financially and they had to sack half the staff, I wouldn't defend it because it would be their fault. But this is very different in my humble opinion. This here says a lot of time companies that do a mass reduction in staff, it's the middleman that gets removed. They increase the pay of other staff to take the load and remove unnecessary staff. I mean, and these are conversations which, whenever you speak about these things publicly, people always get their bee in a bonnet. But I think we all think to our professional lives, how many members of staff have you known where you just think, you're paid that much to do what? I used to have a decent managerial job where I used to look after this sort of complaints team for a bank. And there's a woman that used to work alongside me, but she reported directly into the same boss as me. We worked alongside each other. And all she did, lovely lady, is sit in meetings with him and sit in meetings with the financial ombudsman. But all the data she needed came from me, from my team, because we looked after her. And I used to sit there and say to my boss, why do you need her? I'm not trying to make her lose a job. I said, I have all that information. I present all that information. She's just like a go-between. I said, why don't me and you just have the meetings? He says, oh, because I like her. She's a good friend of mine. Turned out she got made redundant 9 months later because he made her job up. She was just like, and again, and I felt that's where I felt sorry for her, because it was like he had the authority to do it, but when someone new came in, they were like, why do we need this person when there's already someone doing that job, but who actually runs and manages that team? And again, my conversation with him was never about trying to remove anybody. It was just a case of, this don't feel right. We're doing the same job, but she doesn't manage anybody day to day. As soon as somebody new came in, exactly what I told him would happen, bang, she was removed because her job was pointless. And so much of that goes on in corporate organizations. That's why I'm not shocked to see this. I'm not sure if that's in the States or in Jordan, but in the UK, that's a real important thing.